We have 1 minute left, and I know people will be coming in. So if it's okay, I'll go ahead on and get started. Is that okay? I hope everyone
Yeah,
can hear me okay. Okay, great. We're
yeah,
going to
we
go
can hear
ahead
you.
on and get started. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. It is about 10 a.m. and we're going to go ahead on and get started. First, let me say hello to everyone. Thank you for joining the UTD Natural Sciences and Mathematics Career Success Center's Professional Talk Series event with Mr. Nirmal Budhathoki. He is the Senior Data Scientist at Microsoft. So this virtual event is co-hosted by Dr. Paul Krawitz, Director of the NSM Career Success Center, and myself, Tisha Schiavone, who is the Assistant Director of Employee Relations with NSM Career Success Center. So I just wanted to note that attending a professional talk like this event is such a highly important and is very, very important because it offers invaluable opportunities for gaining industry insights, information regarding trends, and knowledge expansion. So as you listen to his talk, please know that Mr. Nirmal was provided submitted questions. So you may hear the answers to your questions that you have already solved. But however, there will be a Q&A after his talk to which we will try to get to as many questions as we can with the allotted amount of time, okay? So before I turn things over to Mr. Nirmal, I would like to mention a few accolades from his bio. First and foremost, he is a U.S. Army veteran who has worked across government and private sectors. So thank you, sir, for your service. He has 3 master's degrees, which is information systems, data science, and business administration. He brings a unique interdisciplinary perspective to solving complex problems as he currently focuses on cloud security at Microsoft. So he also has mentored over 1,000 early career professionals and founded the DevMiri Women's Education Program, which is a scholarship initiative supporting women in Nepal pursuing tech education. And recently, he authored the Decoding ML Interviews book, which is a collection of 100 real world data science interview questions and solutions. Finally, he is the host of the Only One Outliner podcast, which spotlights voices in data science and AI. So I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say thank you, Mr. Nirmal, for being here. And I will now turn the platform over to you.
Thank you, Tisha. That was a great introduction. You saved some time for my About Me page now. Thank you so much. Thanks, Paul and Tisha, for having me today. I really wish that I could have come there in person. That was the initial plan. Something came up at my end, and I had to do it virtual, but I'm glad a lot of people still were able to join. So thank you so much, everybody here. I will share my screen. My chat messages will probably be on the slide, and I may not pay attention. So I might need your help, Tisha, if there are questions. I will definitely cover it at the end of the talk. There is going to be Q&A, but if something is, burning question that, that needs to happen, then obviously please raise your hand and I'll address it. So let me begin my presentation. Uh, I was busy with a lot of things going on, like we are having a big hackathon, the annual hackathon event this week in Microsoft. So, and I'm participating in multiple projects. So I didn't get enough time to put a lot of efforts on the slides, but uh, content-wise, it's there, So in today's world, I think with AI, anyone can make pretty slides, right? So, so I won't probably say that the slides are great, but the content is definitely based on what you guys have submitted on the Q&A. I mean, the questions that I got. If something is not covered, like Tisha mentioned, please bring it up in the Q&A part of the talk. I would love engagement. All of the talks that I've been giving, I want students to come forward, right? So this is your opportunity to ask me questions and we can address this. All right, let's begin. So about me, I think Tisha mentioned quite a bit, so I'm gonna probably just leave it there. Currently working as a senior data scientist in Microsoft. I've been in Microsoft 5 years now. Uh, recently hit my 5-year anniversary. I've been in fintech briefly. Then, like I started my career as a data analyst, as you can see. So I worked all my way up. Like, data analytics is a huge field. I'm going to cover what are the uh, various verticals still exist within the data science. So you guys will have a little bit better idea. When they say data scientist, it's not always doing the exact same thing. Like someone is doing machine learning versus someone is doing on the product end, right? So there's a lot of variations. So I'll cover that. But yeah, it has been a fun journey. I would not say there were not challenges, but definitely, that's a part of learning, right? So we all has to come through it, and I think everyone's journey is different and beautiful in itself. So the topics I would like to cover today, this is mostly based on the questions that I have received. I'm going to cover some confusions around the data science role I mentioned before. Then there are some myths floating around in data science, right? So I hear this very, very common in my talks whenever I am giving, like, the people are asking some common questions. And this has been floating around for a while. And I wanted to address that, so there's no confusions for you when you are trying to get into the data science world. Then I think the most important thing is resume, of course, right? So I dedicated at least uh, a couple slides to that because uh, as Tisha mentioned, I do a lot of mentoring outside of my work when I can. On the TopMate, you can find me on TopMate, and I have sessions for resume building. I have sessions for mock interviews, stuff like that. One of the key thing I learned is, like, people don't have the things that need to be in the resume. And as an interviewer, I have seen many resume. As a mentor, I have seen many resumes. So I kind of wanted to give you some quick tips, right? Just maybe that will be really, really helpful when you guys are ready to apply and tune your resume. Then I'll talk a little bit about networking and mentoring. I think I'm giving this talk all because of networking, actually, right? So Tisha found me on LinkedIn and we connected. So this networking has been actually very, very close to my heart. And that's because I always tell people, if you start networking when you need it, that's too late, right? So you need to probably start ahead of time. And then I wanted to give some tips on project portfolio, especially for the new grads. That matters a lot, especially in data science, because you don't have too much to showcase on your experience section. So project portfolio is the only thing that can advocate for your skill, right? So let's go on the data science roles, right? Like I said, there is a lot of variations. I read the job descriptions, and then there is, like, okay, some data science role talks about more into reporting and dashboard. Some data science talks about building machine learning model. Some data science talks about, handling the product analytics, experimental design, stuff like that. So what is actually the data science itself, right? So in my opinion, the data science itself is a, kind of like, if you think about the hierarchy, just like how hierarchy in organization exists, data science is just a, I think you can add it as a Uber or the high level, the job category that can have multiple verticals along it, right? So, and in my experience, there could be many variations, but a lot of the job titles can be at least summarized within these three. So I'll cover each of these and how the job will look like. I've actually pulled the sample job, just to talk about what these roles will look like and what they mean, right? So the BI focused data scientist is mostly focused on data collection, processing of data, understanding what KPIs matter. KPIs is key performance indicators, right? So they are just the metrics for the business, what matters. And then the dashboard building or the reporting, right? So mostly they seek for the skills like SQL, of course, because you need to query a lot of databases to bring the data and aggregate them together for KPIs, right? So, and data visualization tool, at least one of them. You don't really have to master all, and then the concept of some data engineering matters here, because when I say ETL, it's extracting and transforming and loading the data. There are many variations these days, like ELT, so I mean, it's the same thing. Ultimately, it's data engineering pipeline building, right? So this folks needs to know quite a bit of uh, data engineering and reporting. So, and today I think there are some variations of these roles also that you can hear, maybe analytics engineer. Companies like Netflix and Airbnb, the other companies are adopting the title. So the analytics engineer is nothing but mix of data analyst plus data engineer, right? So, and then that mix is actually, that hybrid is actually the BI, in my opinion. So those roles are getting also popular. One of the company that is hiring specifically with the title like BI engineer is Amazon, right? So that if you see BIE roles, that's exactly the data science variation for BI. And this is a sample role here. So when you see the job description that talks quite a bit about this kind of skill set, it's probably mostly focused on the BI side of data science, right? Then there is a product analytics role. The product analytics, some companies call it out like product data science role. Some companies just call it data scientist, and you need to probably dig into the job description and understand, hey, exactly what this is talking about. So the product data science role is actually getting extremely popular these days. That's because for company, everything is product, right? So, and you are going to be associated with product managers, like you're going to be working with them day in, day out. So product managers make the business decision, like what features to add in the product, why this is not working, like what is a new feature we can add, a lot of this variations or improvements to the product they are thinking about, because that's their job, right? However, they're not the data experts. So this is exactly where data scientists come in play, that, hey, they're going to come up with a lot of ideas and creativity for the product, but like, can they back it up with the data? And then that's when I think they need the data scientist help. So that means if they want to launch a new feature, of course, they have to do A/B testing, right? Because they have to see the variations of feature A, feature B, new feature, or, like, and then they have to set up the experimental pipeline, let it run for a few weeks, collect all the experimental results, and then showcase that they reach a value, right? And then they only will push it. All the big companies, when they launch new feature, before they do that, they have already been doing the A/B testing, and it's kind of like blinded, right? Because we don't know what features, like sometimes we get it as a beta calling out, but sometimes we don't even get it, right? So we are in the test group, right? So I think most fundamental skills on this role is the statistical analysis, because it's very, very rigorous. Like I would say, kind of like heavy focus on the stats, because like I said, hypothesis testing, experimental design, causal inference, those kind of things are extremely common for this role. And Python, of course, because there are situations where you do all your analysis on the notebook, and then you present it, so it's really easy to do that in the Python. So those are the few, the skills you need for this type of role. And as I see, as you can see on the other side, like the Meta is one of the company that actually hires a lot of product data science scientists. There are some variations for product, like if you see like growth focused data scientist, marketing focused, and they're combining all like as a growth to market, right? GTM based data scientist. So a lot of these different variations within the data scientist itself, but they fall within the product. So then there is a machine learning data scientist, and this is where actually I belong. Right now, I work on the security domain within the Azure security. We write a lot of detections. We belong to detection engineering team. And then actually, this is where the data scientist is actually building the ML model. On the previous roles, I think for the product, I think you might need some knowledge of ML, because, of course, regression, time series forecasting, that kind of basic ML modeling, but you will not be required to do very deep ML work. Like using neural nets, like complex models, like today's AI stuff. Like if someone wants to kind of build or fine tune their own large language model or a small language model, or they want to build a RAG based solution, that all kind of that new generative AI plus deep learning plus ML will kind of fall under this category. So they definitely go beyond analytics. And for this one, you can, as you see in the role, they will be highly, you know, focused on asking for ML skills, right? And as Tisha mentioned earlier, like when I was writing the book, I was actually focused on this category of the role. That hey, what are the interviews are covering? And then interviews are still covering the fundamentals. So one of the things I tell everybody that hey, if you are getting into data science, whether any categories, right, fundamentals is the main thing. Make that solid. Then of course, continuous learning is always there, right? But definitely fundamentals is important. And then feature engineering, how you build the model, how you follow the ML ops to deploy your model, that kind of work matters. The soft skills also matters quite a bit for data scientists because they actually sit right in between a lot of these other roles types, right? So you're going to work constantly with data engineers, ML engineers, business stakeholders, and you need to exactly gauge the audience, where exactly you are presenting, talking, like you have that control of the technical versus non-technical knob, right? And that's very key, like to explain things. Like if I go in the business talk, uh, and then I explain all my findings about the complex ML model in the data science language, I just wasted their time, right? Because they don't understand. I need to convert that model metrics into business metrics, right? So precision recall may not matter exactly to them until you are able to convert that. Hey, this many false positive will impact the business in this way, right? So in my case, for example, if I tune a model to catch a malicious behavior of the attacker, and then my model has obviously confusion metrics, right? True positive, false positive, stuff like that. Then when I go talk to business, of course, I will mention briefly about what is the model performance, but then I will extend more towards like, hey, we are minimizing the false positives. So the analysts who are looking into the tickets, they're not overloaded, because if it is false positive, of course, they're going to close it out, right? And that kind of language, that kind of soft skills also matter quite a bit for data scientists. So all right, so moving on, I will talk a little bit about what are the myths that are floating around and in the data science world today. So number one, this is like goes back to 10 years, right? Or, like when the article was published, even a decade ago, that everyone is like data scientist is the sexiest job of 21st century, right? And I think after that, a lot of things happened. Data science role itself evolved quite a bit. So even it started with analytics, then all those three categories that I mentioned are currently floating. But before that, I think there was a lot of variations, right? So, and then I kind of see, hey, let me ask this question to ChatGPT itself, right? So they compared then and now, it was a really booming field, shortage of talent, like again, the supply and demand comes in play, right? So now I think we have uh, so many data scientists already in the market, right? So almost we are at the point that we are kind of saturated with just in the analytics like field. And that's what I think these new variations are coming, new roles are evolving, that with the Gen AI, like, hey, we might need more people on responsible AI side, securing AI, right? We might need new talent on the agentic AI framework. So it's kind of evolving. So if you ask me today that, uh, I won't say any job is sexiest or coolest. For me, I think it actually has to matter with your interest, your skill. So ultimately, it is kind of like a good intersection of your existing skills or where you want to be on your career, right? So if someone comes to me that, hey, I really wanted to be a data scientist, that's because the market hype is there, then I will say that that's not the right way to approach it. So because you might be able to do a little bit more on something else, right? So everyone has that. And then analytics is vast, like I said, right? If someone enjoys just doing data analyst work, like building dashboard and stuff, don't force yourself to the ML side, right? If someone enjoys ML side, then they end up doing like KPIs, dashboarding work, they may not enjoy the work, right? So ultimately, I think it's a as I said, choice of your uh, career path. The other myth that's actually I hear a lot in a lot of these conference talks is like people are asking PhD is a requirement for data science, and I believe the advanced degree will be helpful, of course, but it's not required, in my opinion, right? So unless someone is going to a distinguished category for research-based roles, right? So like research scientist, where a little bit of PhD will help, right? Because they are already on the research mindset. And how do you kind of publish paper? How do you, uh, find a new ways of doing things, right? On that kind of work. But the other role that I discussed earlier today, uh, I think none of that role will seek PhD. The other one I hear a lot, especially from the new grads, is like they always say data scientist is all about always building ML models. And I mean, even within the ML category I work, I don't build models day in, day out, right? So that's not my daily task. My daily task sometimes could be like, getting understanding of where the current projects are going. In some projects, I will be, depending on the phase of the project, I will probably be in the engagement with stakeholder. I'll probably be in the phase of building success criteria. I'll probably in the phase of, you know, uh, collecting the feedbacks for the existing models, for how to retrain for next cycle. There's a lot of things goes in actually, right? It's not always about machine learning models. And actually, before even we build the model, there's a lot of work that we need to put. The heavy lifting is like data cleaning, feature engineering, your cross-functional collaboration, how do you interact with the stakeholders. This is one thing I learned the hard way. Like, I was not involving the stakeholders from the beginning. I thought that I will wait until I have something ready to showcase. However, there is a very valuable feedbacks I may miss, right? So it's always okay to have a regular cadence meetings with them to understand their feedback, give your updates, what's happening, what are the things. Because remember, like the initial stage of data science, like the data cleaning, feature engineering, that is actually takes a long time. The model building piece is I would probably say the shortest period of time in the workflow. And if you only wait until you have a model to showcase something, I think sometimes it's too late, right? Sometimes you miss the opportunity to understand what features could matter, right? So getting that domain expertise, their domain knowledge is important. So always make sure that you keep them in parallel movement, right? So it's always important. All right, now we will jump into resume section, and this is probably going to be some interesting pieces here for you guys to kind of like keep notes or pay attention, because a lot of people are still committing the same mistakes, right? And then in today's competitive world, like I said, I have talked to many recruiters. I brought recruiters on my podcast. They have said that they hardly get 30 to 40 seconds. That's maximum time they get per resume. And today, even lesser, because like there's a lot of AI tools that are helping candidates to apply. The disadvantage of that on the recruiting side is that the ATS will filter or screen. ATS is nothing but it's just stacking the resumes on their end, right, on the order. But they still have to review. So that means the automated tool is kind of flooding their queue. That means they will have lesser amount of time to screen resume, right? So now when you have 30 to 40 seconds and you're not there, of course you're not there, right? How do you make sure your resume talks about you in the perfect way? That's very important. The first and foremost thing is understand the role you are applying, right? Like I already mentioned, there could be variations, right? So, and the previous three was the high level categories, but the actual titles are different, right? So depending on what exact title, and within the data scientist, you may have that three variations, but there are other titles too. So you need to kind of like tune, and this is something that is very helpful. I found it like is this radar or spider chart, whatever we call it, that it shows us the skills, right? What matters for what role. And then you better focus your resume on those key areas, right? If you're applying for data engineers, I'll focus my resume on how I have worked in the projects to build ETL pipelines, how much knowledge I have for databases, how much knowledge I have for the orchestrating this data pipeline or workflow. So everything should revolve around the data engineering work, right? And that's what it speaks for data engineer, right? Sometimes data scientist is a little tricky, so you need to pay attention to what kind of role you are applying. If you're focused on product side of data science role, I will heavily emphasize on experimental design and stuff. Like I said, if you're applying ML type of data scientist role, I'll heavily focus my skills on ML, machine learning side. So that is very important. And then comes tailoring, right? So when I say tailor to the job, first you understand the job, then you understand what skills is needed, and then you customize your resume. The keywords is important to clear the ATS, and which is of course because they have some sort of scoring system. But do not overload it. I've seen that people resume sounds like just the tools and technology, and that's not. Resume should tell a story about you, like I said, right? So have some keywords, but make sure you find a good balance of it, right? And then very important thing is on the bullet points, I will have to tell people that, hey, make it very, very consistent across all the jobs. In some bullet points, the metrics is coming in the front. In some bullet points, metrics is not there at all. In some bullet points, metrics is coming at the end. It's okay that not all bullet points has metrics, because some of them could be qualitative work, right? So you improve the process, things like that. But at least the first 2-3 bullet points to talk about the metrics. And this is a very simple example. I put it there. When you build a fraud detection model, what are the things you use, right? So what is the time saving? I mean, the 30% reduction in false positives, right? And your accuracy is improved. And then not only that, that's talking about your moral side of the metrics. But how is that translated on the business side? Is saving some money, right? So I think you need to understand, in some cases you may have both, in some cases you may have only one. So, but at least some result or impact to showcase will be great. So every time think about what you did, how you did, what result you produced, right? So and the skills is the section that is extremely important. I started telling people that start with the career summary on the top. Could be just 2-3 sentences, very short summarization of your resume. Then right below the career summary, put the technical skills, and technical skills should be very, very well bucketed or categorized, right? So you don't put so many stuff, but just the important stuff on the top section. And then you can follow along with the experience, education, and other sections. That's because half of your resume is going to be, the first half of your resume is going to be the most important piece, right? When they are scheming, I think like I said, they hardly have any time. So your top message should be stack ranked accordingly. The core skills should be highlighted. So for example, this is for general data science roles, right? So if you are in machine learning, of course, there are tools within the machine learning to highlight, like Pandas, TensorFlow, Sparks, etc., right? So soft skills is important, like I said, for data science roles. So it's okay to mention some of these things in your resume, and then you need to kind of find a good balance, right? So another thing that I've been telling people is, when it comes to resume, I follow the KISS principle: keep it extremely simple, right? So simplicity wins for me. You don't have to use fancy layout, the color text or the tabular format. Uh, you know, this is data science resume. This is not like a web designer or designer resume, right? So uh, you just make sure that your resume is very, very simple. So it's going to be ATS friendly. It's going to be recruiter friendly. It's going to be hiring manager friendly. It's going to be telling the message that you want it to, right? So I'm not going to go through each bullet points here, but the content is clear, right? So you want to make sure you reduce the cognitive load then that is what exactly is about simplicity. When I see the resume, when I showcase you something, if I put a lot of stuff, scattered everywhere, that already creates the bias in the mind, that mindset that whoever is reading that, how do I even find the right information? And even the right information is there, they already have the assumption that it's going to be hard for them to find things, right? So don't use complexity on the resume. So So now next section is about networking and mentoring. And this is actually, like I said, very close to my heart. I've been doing this quite a bit. And why it matters, for me, I think career growth, of course, after I started connecting with a lot of folks in the LinkedIn, I learned outside of my domain, right? I learned from them about a lot of scenarios that actually may happen on my real work, or even in some cases for my growth of the career, like if I want to change a job in future, right? And I think none of our role is permanent, right? Sometimes maybe the company will adjust us. Sometimes maybe you wanted to do something different based on your career plan. So it's always good to have that, network folks around you that you can reach out. Hey, can you put me a recommendation referral? And when you ask them only when you need it, I think that's not going to be a valid case, right? So, but you have been connecting with them and for some time, then it makes kind of sense, right? Uh, I would definitely say that it gives also visibility and credibility of your profile. A lot of people like myself, I wanted to build my identity outside of Microsoft. If I have to introduce without that slide, right, about me, and without me talking about my professional career, who am I, right? So that who am I piece without my professional or exactly work career, then there should be something, right? So I'm doing a lot of things outside of my work, right? So sharing content on the LinkedIn, organizing the events, data science events, writing books, uh, and then doing this kind of events, right? So definitely that actually aligns with some sort of professional or personal brand besides the work, right? So that's important. I would say faster learning curve because we can actually, uh, like people always say, right? So they learn from others' mistake, right? So if someone has done it and then they didn't work, then it's okay for you not to fall in the same trap, right? So I see that also comes from networking and knowledge sharing. And sometimes it could be very passive way of networking that you are absorbing the content from the good content creators, and then they are sharing quite a bit of stuff, right? So, and how you do it is obviously the things that you are currently doing. You take your time and come in to join the call. So, and it kind of events like that is happening, you need to probably look for it and then try to see if they are virtual, local meetups, try to join, and then there are many Slack or Discord communities people are running, you can find and join. Like here in Seattle, this is where I belong. So sometimes they do like a quick meetup, local meetups for a coffee, and sometimes they also do a meetup for a hike, things like that. I love to go because throughout the hiking, for example, I connected with a new person and we just talk about stuff, right? And that's definitely fun, right? So try to be more proactive yourself, right? It doesn't come to you, in my opinion, because this is the initiative that you need to take, right? Uh, the last section for our talk today is project portfolio. And like I said, this is extremely important because for the new grads, experience sections is not going to be heavy, right? So where can you add things that should advocate for your skills? So this is where it comes. So, and it actually matters a little bit more in data science, in my opinion, than other role. Like if you're doing software engineering, then you do the lead code grind, you cleared all the coding rounds and you get it, right? In the data science, the interviews are also very, very, there's a lot of variations in difference, right? With sometimes within the company, sometimes based on the role. And one of the thing is like your portfolio sometimes, talk for you on the resume, as well as during the interviews when you have conversation with hiring managers, you can bring those projects in the discussion, right? So projects helps you to showcase the skills. And then, of course, today's competitive world, one thing I always ask is, what is the differentiating factor you have, right? So, and that's important. Keep that in mind that the differentiating factor is important. Like you could have done extraordinary project, you could have done some events hosting or something, and then you have one differentiating factor about leading some conferences or something, right? So besides the standard curriculum, like everyone has gone through the same course, everyone knows the fundamentals of ML, everyone knows how to give the interviews or the crack the interviews. And at the end, when you are in that final selective list, interviewers are already kind of like, gauging your potential in a lot of other angles besides exactly the technical skills, because everyone knows today's world that especially with the AI, if I hire someone, they will figure it out, right? They don't need to give me the exact right answer on the SQL query I asked. They don't need to solve the programming question that I asked exactly end to end. As long as they did extremely good walkthrough and logical breakdown, how they tackle the problem, critical thinking and problem solving skills is what matters, right? So this is where I think when you can bring uh, really good projects. And when I say really good projects, it's not about like doing the wine tasting or Titanic kind of data set from the Kaggle. It's simple data sets everyone has done. Again, that's not going to create differentiating factor. So a lot of times I ask people that it's okay to pull the data from Kaggle, and there are other sources also. You have to sometimes look beyond Kaggle. Then the given problem statement there, can you find your own problem statement, right? So if something is telling you that, for example, a ride sharing company, Uber or something, they have shared the data about all the accidents or stuff. And they also have shared the data about predicting some kind of things, right? However, that same data can be utilized for something else, right? So could be not predicting accidents, but maybe like avoiding some routes for the drivers, right? Uh, and so you have to think about the. I would always suggest that given a Kaggle data set, think about 10 other problem statements, and then try to focus and boil down into one that you really like or you want to do it. And you can come up with your own ideas and problem statements, right? And that's where I think the networking matters too. Like if you go back, when you connect with the people, like, hey, I was trying to do a project in this, what do you think? And you get a lot of feedbacks from them, right? So there is a good website I've been suggesting to the folks. I definitely will share the slides later. But if you can take a note, then the data science portfolio.io is very good in a way that it's simple. I'm telling all the mentees to set it up. So it's almost like a lot of people will have a GitHub, but what is your landing page? What is your portfolio link is something sometimes people lacking. So here you can probably add your own about me and quick intro. And then as you can see, there's going to be a lot of projects you can add, right? And the projects you can add will be just the high level descriptive. And for that, I suggest like what problem you solve, what data you use, what was the impact again, and what tools you use, right? And then you create a tags based on that, and it kind of highlights that like this person has done the project on Airbnb listing, a price prediction, and the tools used were Python, SQL, and MATLAB, things like that, right? So, and there is a link, there is a placeholder where you can add the URL for your GitHub. So if your code stays on the GitHub, you can always link it. But over here, you don't really have to do everything. So like this is at the high level wrapper for you to build your portfolio, and then usually it's really, really good to add on a resume on the top. All right, so I'm going to cover, this is my last slide, of course, before we go on Q&A, a little bit about the question that we have received on the chat, and most of them I covered are in the talk, but one of the question was unique, and it was about where Microsoft is today in the AI race and where it is heading. So I think it's really hard in today's market to gauge even like, next 5 years. So I would probably won't be able to tell exactly where we're heading in like next 10, 15 years, but I do know which direction we are heading though, right? So quantum computing, right? So that's where I think we recently already released the first computing chip, and then there is going to be a lot of research going on still. That's because we have already realized that computing is the next superpower. It's not going to be AI, right? Because AI is not going to be able to do without compute. And then we are kind of hitting the ceiling on the data too, because data is all about coming from internet, right? So all the data that all these large language models we have so far already has actually seen all the data we have, right? So they're extremely powerful models. So now to go beyond that, what we need is, of course, the higher computing power. So maybe they can learn a lot of interactions within the existing data itself. We can probably create a lot of other synthetic data when needed using the diffusion models. A lot of things we can do, but ultimately it boils down to the computing power. And then that's where I think Microsoft is spending some time and energy. The other one is, of course, like we have the big, one of the biggest impact or the use case of AI will be healthcare sector, right? And this is where I think I have heard Oracle is also spending a lot of, because you probably have seen they're doing a big contract with OpenAI. Oracle is also spending on some resources like computing resources and stuff so that they can power the healthcare sector, right? So that they are leading in that direction, like, because one of the most complex data will be about our own like human, systems, right? So it's very complex, right? So if we want AGI, like, the artificial general intelligence, that's all everyone is talking about. That's like having the common intelligence, like how human thinks, right? And then because the human's brain is so complicated, it's really hard to understand without doing at least more computing on that area. So basically, DNA sequencing, this kind of work, like understanding the human brain, how it works, to mimic that on the AI system, is going to be next powerhouse. And that's also where we are thinking a little bit. The other piece is agentic AI, if you hear a lot, right? So that's probably going to be, I would probably say agentic AI is a framework or the system itself. The technology within that is could be based on the models that's powering it, right? So agentic system is what, like, it's just the collection of agents, and you are making a smart decision on which one to use, when to use which agent, and when one agent goes down, how do you kind of like handle the load, a lot of things, right? So it's just the multi-agent system or the framework, but then those agents are powered by, again, the models, right? So when the models upgrades, when the models get to the situation where we want, and that's what I think, again, it comes down to the compute, right? but but even having that better agentic AI system is also important, right? So that can make autonomous decisions for us. Uh, and there is going to be a lot of workflow that we can probably automate. If you think about that ML workflow in the beginning, I would love to have an agent to do all my data cleaning, like that heavy lifting job, and I can focus more on machine learning side, for example, right? And that can happen, and we already start doing that. So that's because you just have to set up the guardrail metrics or checks for validating the data checks that agent has done, and this is another uh, career path that I suggest people that now we are in the stage where initially we had all the companies were kind of following the hype. Now we are in a stage where we know that, hey, the AI has some value, and now they're identifying the real world use case to apply AI for their benefit. That means to generate some return on investment, right? So ultimately, you can't just dumping the money on the AI if you don't get it back, right? And then on that note, I think they are figuring out their use case that can implement the AI. Once they figure it out, they have this AI systems needs to go on the production, right? So right now, I think if you recently, there was a research came out of MIT that 95% of the AI projects fail. Only 5% of them succeed. That's because the 5% of them has identified the real world use case and then done it right, right? The done it right is the important thing, because how do you scale it properly? How do you handle it securely? There's a lot of moving pieces when you want to put something in production. It's not like you're doing on your local system to build one uh, small agent framework and then, hey, answering Q&A. AI goes beyond chatbot, right? That's another thing that a lot of time people have mistaken mindset. Like ChatGPT is just a variation of AI, like one variation, and that's just focused on the chat, our conversation. But there's more things you can do, right? So what I meant here is once these companies will understand what use case matter to them, the next stage is to deploy it securely. And when I say securely, it's about ethics, bias, responsible side of AI, right? That all comes in picture, right? Especially if we are tackling the problems in a heavy regulated field like healthcare, fintech, those are the areas that are heavily regulated because you cannot, the margin of error is low, right? So on that case, on that scenario, like the next wave of job that titles is going to float is going to be around that, who is the expert in building some security measures on these agents or these AI systems. So I think I also feel like I'm in the right track of role. At least I'm in the security domain. So I just have to evolve on understanding all these frontier models and how they work, and then adding the skills to make sure that we kind of ground those models when need to be. So that's going to be probably next wave of rules. So if someone is looking for the career path that could be very demanding in future, it will be securing AI and responsible side of AI. So then of course I think we recently saw in the Meta presentation that they also are doing a lot of investment on the augmented reality and virtual reality. We also have some capacity, and we want to continue there, like HoloLens, things like that, especially uh, to focus on mixed reality, right? Ultimately, this AI systems can create that kind of hybrid environment to test a lot of things, especially testing the things, right? If you cannot test on the real boundary in the synthetic or virtual world, or if you can test it, I think uh, that's another thing that we are heading. So, all right, that kind of concludes my talk. If there were chat messages I missed, I would definitely like to address now. And I would like to thank you for your time today to coming in and listen to me. I hope the talk was useful. And then I hand it over to Tisha, like for questions or anyone coming off mute. Uh, Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. For the Q&A, do you prefer raised hands or would you prefer questions to go into the chat?
Raise hands is fine. I can now see the screen, so we can go. You can pick one at a time.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hands and I will ensure that you're able to ask him a question. All right, I think that is Sabi, I think. Let's see. You should be able to unmute and ask your question, please.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
All right. Once again, thank you so much for this session. It's been very, very educative, informative. My question was that based on your personal experience, so um, you did your bachelor's in 2007. Then when you arrived to the United States, you joined the military, you served in the US Army. And then after that, you also took a bit of a different path by completing master's degree in three different fields. So for someone, for someone like who's aspiring, because I'm currently a graduate student as well in data science specifically. So for someone who's early on new to their careers, and then let's say they have a fear of not really landing a sort of a data analytics position or something like that, how does one tackle with that, and how does one just keep themselves motivated, like despite doing the right things in the resume, just tailoring it pretty well using the
Yeah,
keywords and still not quite being able to make it? So how does one deal with that according to you?
yeah. I think that's a very, very good question, and thanks for bringing that up. Short answer, I think my career, if you look at it, it's been everywhere. For me, also, some of the decisions I made was based on the requirement, like what is the only option I had at that point of time. Joining military was not even in my plan. And then, at that point, like the recession time was at the peak. I had to land something, and then military had just started that pilot program, right? It was a trial program they ran for a few years. Now, at least as an international student, no one can join, right? And I thought that would be a really good kind of like a door opener for me, especially if I want to establish my career in the US. So I joined, right? So, and some of the master's degree that I did was keeping myself from the educational front ready, because my mindset was like after 4 and 5 years, my initial trauma, I would want to get out and do the job in the tech, but that was my dream role anyway. So taking the detour is okay, right, in career, because sometimes we don't land or have the thing that we want. But if someone is working as a small data analyst role in a small company, it's okay, right? For the first few years, I think you need to learn exactly how you work in the business setting, on the real world setting. And then actually, in my opinion, that's what I felt and I had done too. Like during the school, I had thought about what if this will happen, you know, what if this will not happen? So that's a lot of what ifs has been kind of like circling in my mind. Once you start working, your growth is, for me, like once you start working, your growth is kind of like exponential, you know, because you learn a lot of things, right? Only in the school, I mean, you are more curriculum focused. You're more into just thinking about your next dream role, but you haven't landed that, and then that what if will not even make sense until you get there, right? The other thing I will suggest is, of course, like you said, sometimes when you did everything you can, and things are not working out, it's okay, So I mean, it's hard because I suggest people that if things are not in your control, it's not in your control, right? So it happened to me also when I look back, like, hey, I'm doing everything I can, connecting with people, applying to jobs, attending interviews, giving my like 200% in interviews and still not making it, right. It it makes me hit the ground. But then this is what I think, one of the thing I got out of my military career is the resilience. Like, they put you in the spot so many times in such a way that you hit the lowest point, and that's because they want you to bounce back, right. And that is very important. So I always tell people that keep expectations low. Suffering will happen, resilience needs to be built, right? And that will translate in the real world also, you know. And I think the market is extremely competitive because of layoffs, and a lot of people are still on the pool. Experienced folks are in the same pool of applications, and 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 if you are at least getting screened and getting interviews, I say failed interviews are better than no interviews. So,
Thank you
but
so much.
anytime, feel free to connect to me over LinkedIn. I shared my contact there. Any other help or recommendation I can make, we can chat offline. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Namar, could you please tell the attendees about your YouTube channel, what that is about, how they can connect with you that way,
Yes.
and how they can purchase your book as well?
Yeah. So the book, I will probably share the link. I didn't get a chance to add it. So there is uh, decoding machine learning interview questions, which is 100 collection. I co-authored with someone that I knew and connected with him from the LinkedIn. For me, the motivation to write a book was, not to have one extra resource on the market, but I spent at least quite a bit of time, almost a year, So when I go through the interview preparation guide, like I said, for software engineering, it's a little bit streamlined. You go on the lead code, you filter by company, you filter by categories of questions, you grind it to that, you get it. Data science, it's very complicated, right? But what happens is a lot of people have known the concepts, but when it comes to interview, that coming out that same concept they have understood, intuitively it's not coming out. So I focused on addressing the question, and as well as what could be the tricky follow-ups. Sometimes the interviewers like to throw you the curveball, right? And that's where the follow-ups will be more important. And I myself had some stories about, you know, failing the interviews, but the questions were all the ones that I prepared. So I'm like, what did go wrong? So I'm trying to bring that experience along and say that, hey, maybe I didn't tackle with the intuition, to work on this. And it's in the Gumroad. If you go in the Gumroad and search for the decoding machine learning interview questions, it will be myself and Karun as author. And so right now it's a digital version, but of course we'll have it the printed soon. The YouTube channel I started because I just wanted to bring the industry experts to talk about what's happening in the data science, what they're doing in their current role. And I started with the podcast, and then now I'm kind of putting some videos like the things that I talked today, right? Like what to do versus what not to do in a resume. So like quick short videos are also there to help you out. I'm trying my best to push a lot of contents, but always, you have the other piece of you, right? The life work and stuff. So, but you will get some really good, valuable content there as well in the LinkedIn, the YouTube. So if you have not, please follow that. It's called Only One Outlier. So if you look for Only One Outlier on the YouTube, that channel is mine. So there are a lot of good podcasts, like people are coming from industries to chat too. So. All right. Anyone else have?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did put your YouTube link in the chat so everyone can
Awesome.
know where to find you. So if there are any other questions or no other questions, we had 5 minutes and we can thank Mr. Nirmal for being here. Any other questions? Last call for questions. Okay, I don't see any coming through. So with that, we're going to say thank you so much, Mr. Nirmal, for being here. We really appreciate you and value your time. Thank you again. And with that, we say bye, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'll connect with you later, Mr. Nirmal. Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.